Now, the easiest way to determine whether or not story matters in video games is to break this down into 3 categories. So let's start with the first category. This category focuses on games where the fundamentals are solely focused on the gameplay itself. I would like to call this category of games the gamers. Now, if you want some examples of what games would be in this category, it would be Dark Souls, Crash Bandicoot, every Mario game, like the majority of 2D retro games, and so on. Now, some of the games in this category do have good stories, but the point I'm trying to make here is that regardless of whether or not a game in this category has good story, you do not lose or gain anything from the enjoyment of the game. Where in the other 2 categories, you can most certainly lose or gain something if the story is bad. And this is where we get to the second category. This category focuses on the games that blends the elements of stories and games together. I would like to call this category story games. Now, if you want some examples of what games would be in this category, it would honestly be the majority of modern day games. The Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, PS4, Marvel Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure you get the picture. Now, in the gamers category, story mattered 0%, but in the story games category, it is 50% game, 50% story. And I don't even mean that in length. I mean that simply based on enjoyment. The absolute best example of this is The Last of Us Part 2. This is the best example when it comes to story games because the main problem people had with this game was the story. And this is when the gamers start to argue, oh, why do you hate the game because the story is bad? Isn't the whole point of a video game supposed to be the game itself? All right, let me explain it so your dumbass can understand. Story games are not just games. They are playable long-form movies. How can you argue that stories shouldn't matter when there are over 10 hours worth of cutscenes in this game? That is longer than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But if you truly think that story doesn't matter in video games, then let me introduce you to the final category. This category focuses on games that completely build their narrative through the story. I would like to call this category of games the storytellers. If the story is bad and your game is in this category, you have fucked up your game. And if you've been paying attention, some of you might already have some ideas of what games would be in this category. Life is Strange, Heavy Rain, The Wolf Among Us, every Telltale's game, the list goes on. Now, you do need good gameplay to make these games work, especially when there's other mechanics than just the choice-based dialogue like Max's Rewind Power and Life is Strange. But if your story sucks, then the gameplay doesn't even matter, because no one's going to play the game.